Welcome to Wealthing Talks. I am your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, bringing you real life conversations from Silicon Valley or somewhere around the world. We will talk about disruptors, angel investments, venture capital, and of course, family offices. Join me along with my children, their families, friends, disruptors, and investors as we explore the fascinating world of creating wealth in a completely different and authentic way. Well, hello. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is an absolute pleasure to have Marko Gargenta as a guest. We met a few years ago at St. Hill Angels. He's an investor as well as an entrepreneur. And then later on, I invested in his company through my club. And I invested before personally, too. Actually, through St. Hill Angels. That's the way. Marko, thank you so much for being here.
Great to see you, Alicia. Great. Thanks for having me.
Good. So let's start with how did you get here? How did you get to do what you're doing? And then you tell us what you're doing.
As in the startup that we do.
Whatever it is
It's
that you're
been
doing now.
yeah, it's been it's actually a journey that goes multiple companies back. I saw an ad on a Craigslist back in the early 2000s, and it was a nonprofit that was helping bridge the digital divide. So it was about helping inner city kids, immigrants, women, people like that with getting tech jobs. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I started doing that on the weekends and evenings, teaching initially PHP and Java courses. And I fell in love with like helping people get to the next level, transform their lives through education. And then somebody said, you can do this corporate. I was like, oh, really? So I started a software services company. So we were basically started offering that as software training classes to big tech. So company was called Maracana, and our customers were Intel, Qualcomm, Cisco, Motorola, DoD, like big organizations. And we grew that organically. And at one point, it was one of the fastest growing companies in Bay Area. And ultimately, we ended up selling it to Twitter, where we became Twitter University. And that was as Twitter was going through the rapid growth pre-IPO. And so it became Twitter University. And I continued that journey of helping now Twitter engineers get to the next level. And I thought it was pretty cool. And as part of that, we developed a platform. And I thought that platform could be useful beyond Twitter. So I left and basically spun that out as a separate company. So Plus Plus today is a learning platform mostly for tech organizations. Our bigger clients are Salesforce, Netflix, LinkedIn, Shopify, etc. So yeah, that's what we do. That's how I got here. So it's been basically a 15 plus year journey from a company to a company. So
Wow. If you were to write a note to yourself 20 years younger, what are the things that you learned that you didn't know? What would you tell yourself?
so maybe be bolder. I started my first company when I was 19. I was very bold, but I crashed and burned because I was also naive. And and then I was bruised and I was started playing safer, so got into services and kind of wanted to build on small successes, and I did that, and slowly and gradually kind of yeah. But I would probably be bolder and play bigger games. Yeah.
Do you think that has to do with living in Silicon Valley, or do you think that has to do with what you learn through working in your company?
Um, Both. I think in Silicon Valley, that's kind of the expectation. You think big, change the world, and yeah, and it's kind of like this kind of duality of like growing up as coming here as an immigrant and kind of wanting to succeed, but then also wanting to build something big and meaningful and change the world. So yeah, it's a combination of the two somewhat opposing forces.
And now going forward 20 years, what would you like to remind yourself of in the future of in your life going forward?
Um, there was always, like, when I was younger, there was always this sort of like life. I call it the deferred life plan, right? Like, so do what you have to do so that one day you get to do what you love to do, right? So it was, as a younger me, I was deferring um, what I really enjoyed, and these days I'm more making sure that whatever I do is fun and meaningful, and a sense of purpose, right? So it's a self-expression in a way. So making sure that I'm doing things that are purposeful to me now, and not deferring life because we just never know, the point B, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That is true. I was hit by a car when I was jogging 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and it's like, oh wow, okay, and it's perfectly okay 1 minute in the middle of the road the next minute, but
yeah.
so, yeah, that.
Those are, yeah, those are sort of like those reminders. I crashed a motorcycle on a freeway, and typically don't survive those things. It was like I was going 80 miles an hour, and that happened a couple of days before 9/11. So I was in the
Wow.
hospital as 9/11 happened, and so I was just sort of reminded how fragile life is, and how we never know what that point B is. So yeah, that was a reminder to live life fully in the present.
We're going to come back to that later because that's my last question. It's about legacy and things like that. What about your company? What keeps you excited in the morning about Plus Plus, and what makes it exciting for you?
Yeah, I was always I sort of like I was looking at this intersection of like my purpose being helping people get to the next level
Mm-hmm.
professionally,
Mm-hmm.
and doing that through at scale. So doing that through software products. I enjoy kind of tinkering and building software products that then serve that purpose. And so that's kind of how I constructed what Plus Plus is. And what I really enjoy what we do is we have the privilege to work with some of the smartest people on the planet, right? So our users, our engineers at some of the biggest Silicon Valley companies, and they tend to push the envelope of both culturally and educationally in many different ways. So kind of serving them and working with them has been a privilege, and so I've been really enjoying that. And of course, now we have AI, and everyone's talking about that, and like building really kind of building features around what's possible. And we haven't had that sense of like technologically we can deliver magic in a long time. Like we've been delivering enterprise software and with a nicer UI, this and that. Uh, but now we can deliver things that are quite magical, and that's super exciting. And so I had this sense of like totally getting re-energized in the last year or so
Uh-huh.
with the product development because of that, or because of what's possible. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. What do you think there are the risks for AI? What do we need to watch out for?
In my case, or in the case of learning, it's usually about how accurate it is, how um, yeah, how good the results are. We feed it a lot of sort of internal knowledge. We ask it to summarize things, build uh, tests, help people learn, etc. And so quality control of applying AI to institutional knowledge, it's kind of hard. Like we don't quite know how to kind of do that other than manually spot check. Luckily, manual spot checks so far have been just wonderful. So the quality has been really high, but just kind of thinking about QA, we don't have a good automation for that going forward. So it's mostly been sort of like, we'll just spot check here and there. And yeah, luckily it works. But yeah, it'd be nice to that'd be something to watch out for, especially as we start doing this at scale.
Yeah, I've been evaluating how AI um, strengthens prototypes or stereotypes. Sorry, how it makes stereotypes stronger. And I wonder if AI is going to contribute to build walls between people because they don't see each other, because they are so
Mhm.
certain that their way is the right way because AI supports what they say. I call it the soap bubble authority. Can burst in
Yeah.
a moment, but it looks pretty. It's colorful.
Yeah.
It floats. It's around. You can see it, but it doesn't. It's not solid, and that's one of the things that I'm concerned about. I also checked when we have our meetings with our members, and some of our members and I are working on different projects, a nonprofit, or we're working with a training program inside the club. And I noticed that when we are talking, if we're talking about money, AI or the Zoom AI, which is the one that we're using, assumes that the person talking about money is a he.
Mm,
And
interesting.
yes, and the joke is like, okay, who's going to be the he on this conversation? And if we have a meeting just women, because we have meetings with men and women, if we have meetings that were just women, it usually distorts the information and picks up things that are stereotypical female. Like
Mm,
they were talking about the color of the sky, or we don't talk about shopping unless we're evaluating a company that is towards shopping, but we don't do e-commerce, or we don't do platforms. But it's really interesting because and I had a meeting this morning about the changes that we want to do in venture capital for family offices. And as it happened, the first part, there were just women that came, and then eventually people started coming. And when I see the summarized report, it's like they talked about their kids, they talk about, it's the same thing. But I talked to you and I said, how are your kids? It doesn't pick up that conversation when it picks up the name. So I'm that's one of the things that I noticed, that it creates a lot of biases. Now I wouldn't say
yeah.
hallucination, just bias. I
Yeah.
ask I ask AI on different platforms, Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, to write a brief about me, because somebody needed that, and they introduced me with something that I didn't know I had. And I was like, I didn't know that. And so where did you get it? I said, oh, we asked AI. And so I did that. And then I said, oh, that's not me. And then I moved into, okay, create the brief as if that person, because I didn't say about me, I said that person was a white man. And it was sold doctor, because I have a PhD, so doctor, and lead thinker, and the other one is caring. And then I started asking, well, write as if as if that person was a Black person. I didn't put gender. I said, oh, very interested in justice. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I said, put
Uh,
it as Hispanic, and it was completely different. Put it on LGBTQ, it's completely different. Um, so then I started thinking, and I put it on LinkedIn. And I started thinking, this is so interesting because I never, I never think that I can prompt that bias by asking the other question. I just said, create you know,
yeah.
create a one paragraph profile. So I thought that was interesting, and I do think that that is the reason why a lot of people are continuing to see differences instead of seeing the points where we can converge. And then I think this is going to create more and more division, in my opinion, until we figure out how to bring it back together. And you're working on that, so I was wondering if you had some tips to avoid that.
Yeah, biases. That's very interesting. We haven't run into that yet. We Because we mostly use AI to apply on the institutional knowledge, so internal documentation, internal learning courses, internal training material, and we mostly use it to either summarize it or build automatic flashcard study material, mind maps, things of that nature. So it's been mostly kind of deducing the knowledge as opposed to creating. So yeah, haven't really run into that.
Well, try
But
to
it's
look into that, because maybe there are some
yeah.
biases there. I just realized that the first time that somebody, because this person's name could be a man or a woman,
Mhm.
and I thought it was related to voice, but then I noticed, it's probably not related to voice. It's probably related to the name. And
Right.
and the joke is now we call her Mister, and she has a good laugh. It said, "Of course I'm Mister," and that gives me another level of prestige. Unfortunately, but it was really interesting. So that might be worth checking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably where we're heading. I just downloaded a book called The Brief History of Intelligence. And
Mm.
I just downloaded it this morning. I'm looking forward to reading that, because AI can bring so much, and can cause so much, improvements, but it's also a little bit challenging. How do you feel about AI's impact on creativity?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's it could be additive, because it provides another level of abstraction. So things that were sort of mundane creativity tasks can now be um, abstracted and done easier. But so it definitely is a tool. And I never thought that it was gonna come after that, right? Like when we were sort of, years back when we were discussing artificial intelligence, I always thought that creativity is something that is innately a human capacity, uh, and it's proving to be quite easily automated. So I think creativity is definitely pushing us. AI creativity is pushing us to think at a different level. I think consciousness is the one that's now, the pure human quality. And so how do we then elevate creativity to the level of consciousness and come to it from that angle? So it's forcing us in a way to be more creative, because the lower levels have been just taken away by AI and automated. So yeah.
So tell us more about that. What do you mean by consciousness?
Well, what does it mean to be human? Why do we do what we do? And it's getting more into the domain of philosophy, and justice, and what's right, what's wrong, and um, what's the best way to kind of what to focus on, what to put energy or attention. So those are things that are quite interesting. I had a discussion with my men's group, and we were talking about what do we how do you recommend to kids what to study, right? So decades ago you would say, hey, go off computer science or engineering, this and that. But now it's like, what are the subject matters that you would want your kids to get really good at? And as we were thinking about that, it becomes really philosophical, right? Like, what does it mean? What what does it mean to be? What does it mean to be human? What's the next level of consciousness, awareness? Yeah.
It's very interesting, because I have a friend of mine who demonstrated that pigeons have conscious. That was his PhD. And I'm like,
Mm,
really? He said, yeah, they can become aware of things. Uh, they have a level of consciousness that we didn't expect in birds. So they're not even mammals. But anyway, it's interesting to say that. I think we have to rethink about who we are as humans. I think that's rightly so. And this is a big change, big shift. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like I'm not against AI. It's here to stay. It's also in a way challenging us to evolve to the next level. And that's exciting. But it's not obvious what that next level necessarily is. And so this is where we have more questions than answers. But it's always good to be suspended in an inquiry. I think that's what kind of gets us to like really think through things and evolve.
Yeah, curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that goes back to what I was saying. So AI gives you a reassurance that you're right. I'm a scientist by training. I don't want to be right. So the whole purpose of science is to prove that you're wrong, not to prove that you're right. And people don't get it. So
Yeah.
we advance when we realize we were wrong. AI has some work to do in that area, especially for people who have not been trained to be curious and to self-question things. And I think that is the next phase, in my never humble opinion. But
Yeah. So it's confirmation bias. I mean, you talked about biases earlier, and that is the dangerous thing.
yeah,
And so it does provide a lot of biases. And if we are sort of lazy and naive in using it, we're just gonna fall of that. So yeah.
yeah. So when I talk to my kids and my grandkids that are a little bit older now, I think that the most important aspect of their education is critical thinking,
Yeah.
which is challenging because if you're raising kids, you want to have some form of authority over them. and and I said, but I'm the grandma, I'm not the mom. So I said, okay, critical thinking here. But that is something that I think we need to add more to it in a way that is respectful and proper. We used to joke in the family of Facebook PhDs. I'm an agronomist by training. I love to grow my plants, my food, and a lot of people come with these very weird things, and none of them work. And I look at that, I said, "Oh, this is stupid." But they made a video, and now with AI, they can make it all look beautiful. That's not the way you grow these. You're going to kill these plants later, and it's like that. It's a bias, a ratification of knowing something, or they listen to that and yeah, but it's a whole new aspect that I think as humanity we're moving forward. We're trying to figure out what to do with that.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to move into what is usually the last question that you were just going into that direction. And I wanted to dive more into AI because that's an area where have you have a lot of experience in how people use systems to advance internal knowledge or tribal knowledge. But now I have to ask a more personal question along the lines of consciousness. When I was 13, I fell off a horse and
Mhm.
I died. But I didn't die
Mm.
fully. So I died and it's like, and I saw myself dead there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I died and I didn't even live my life and whatever. But I woke up a few days later, when you're in coma, you don't keep track of time, or at
Yeah.
least I didn't. And I always saw the possibility of not being here as a reality, probably like when you had your accident. It is real.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I had a joke with my grandson once that I said, I'm trying to create a family office because, when I die, and he stopped me and said, what do you mean when you die? It's like, yeah, well, when I die, then you take over. It's like, when are you going to die? I don't know. I said, you don't know when you're going to die? No, but you know you're going to die. I know I'm going to die. Are you sure? I am sure. How are you going to die? I have no clue. So that was a very interesting conversation. And at the end, he said, okay, grandma, I don't know about you, but I'm not dying. And I said, okay, you're not dying. But I always think about that my time here is going to end. And then my last question for our guests is always about that very deep spiritual or philosophical question. Who is going to be Marko when Marko is no longer here?
It's a good question. And it's sort of like, yeah, what's the purpose? Like, what am I trying to do behind that? I'll start with what I saw when I kind of got onto this track of my purpose is helping people kind of evolve and get to the next level. It happened when I was working at that nonprofit, and what I realized is that in certain cases, like predicting the future is possible, right? Like if you throw a rock, you sort of can anticipate what that rock is going to be a couple of seconds later. Like, so in a way, we can predict the future. And so if you take a human being, if you launch that baby into the world, in a way, you can predict where that baby is going to end up, right? Given socioeconomic um, factors, etc. And there are very few things that can change that trajectory, right? Like, so, somebody discovers a certain talent or wins a lottery or becomes movie star, an athlete. There are rare events that will change the trajectory of a human being. But one of the more predictable ones is through education, right? So education has that sort of capacity to change, right? Like parents might never have gone to college. You go to college, suddenly you and your offsprings and so on are on a totally different life trajectory. And so I've been really kind of curious about inspiring people around that. And so that's been sort of like my life purpose or a goal, how to inspire people to be lifelong learners, to constantly shift their context and how they see the world, and how they see themselves. So that's what I've been working on, and I imagine that building a learning platform is a way to kind of do that at scale, as opposed to obviously doing more higher fidelity one-on-one with kids and so forth. So yeah, so that's been inspiring people to shift the focus and be the better version of themselves and redesign how they think about themselves. Um, yeah, that's kind of the purpose.
Good. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. How do people contact you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably a good way, and that's probably the easiest way to find me. Yeah, Marko Gargenta at LinkedIn.
Well, Marko, a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming. Always great to see you. Not enough, but always great to see you. And I'll keep getting your updates for our
Thanks,
talk.
Alicia. Thank you. Thanks, Alicia. Great to see you, and great questions. I really appreciate the conversation.
Well, I met Marko many, many years ago. We were together at St. Hill Angels, which is a very large angel group in Silicon Valley. Plus Plus, I invested in Plus Plus because it solves problems that to me are very, very close to my heart, which is at that time was tribal knowledge. There's so many things that we know that we don't bring to our curriculum, we don't bring to our communities at work that could benefit other people. And sometimes little things like, how do I fix this thing in my home, or that really take place in society. But if we're working full time, we don't really have time to do that. In the villages and the old towns, like the town where I was born and raised, our neighbors used to know something, somebody knew something, but we've kind of lost that. And I like that approach to building a community where they help each other, and that creates, a lot of a different social network, a different rules of engagement, where you feel that you're useful, but you also feel that you can be vulnerable and ask for help in a different way. So I really like his company. He has a very interesting trajectory, as you could see. So he came working for a nonprofit, then he built a solution that he sold it to a corporation, then he spin it out, and he worked on this for several years before raising money from other people. And he started with his friends, and we've invested a couple times. And I think the evolution of AI is very interesting, and especially the part of the conversation where we talked about the challenges, because everybody talks about the opportunity, and we need to be aware of the challenges it creates. No different than, for example, electricity. Everybody lives with electricity now, but in the early ages, in the early times of electricity, you had a lot of problems. So that's where we're heading to. I hope you enjoy this conversation. This is your host, Alicia Castillo Holley. See you in Wealthing next episode. Thanks for tuning in to our Wealthing Talks. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. To stay connected, visit us at wealthing.com. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, your host, and until next time, yours in Wealthing.